Look at all that money, yeah, the money that they've spent. Take another look and take some time for hemp. Don't cut trees for paper, cause it hurts the environment. Stop deforestation, yeah, it's time for hemp. Well, an acre of hemp makes 20 barrels of oil. No need for pesticides to poison all our soil. People got no food, they got no clothes, they got no rent. Well, it's time for hemp.
Yes, it is. It is time for hemp. I am your host, Casper Leitch. Thank you for tuning in to the big broadcast today. As always, we have an interesting show with an interesting guest. And anytime you hear the word joint on the big broadcast, please fire up your bongs, your vaporizers, and take time for hemp. Also, visit timeforhemp.news. You can get all kinds of free downloads there, free music, free podcasts to share with your friends, lots of videos to enjoy, all about how important it is to let the whole world know how important it is to take time for hemp. We've also got somebody up in Canada. That's a funny name for a country. Up in Canada, that's also letting the whole world know how important it is cannabis hemp is. And he's doing it at a steady pace. And his name is Al Graham. Hey, Al.
Hey, Casper. How you doing?
Pretty groovy. What's happening up there in Canada?
Well, you know, it's Canada. We're doing things. We're dealing with weather situations, so on and so forth. But we're staying busy. You know, we're trying to promote cannabis advocacy. We've got the Global Marijuana March that hoping that happens in a month's time, a little bit more than a month. But you got to get the word out, let people know what's going on.
And you do that through the Pace Radio Network?
Yeah. I actually created a video based on the history of the march over the years and seeing the street covered in people. So I created a video to help remind people about that, and I got it out for people to see. And at the very end, I said, it's time to do it again. Getting like 50,000 people out to a march, but that doesn't happen anymore. So.
And where can they find all this information?
Oh, you can find it at paceradio.net. As far as in the video, you can find that at our YouTube channel, the Pace Radio Network. And as far as what we do on the network, we cover psychedelics as well as cannabis. And we've got news and we got interviews, and we go 7 days a week.
And another one of our groovy joint hosts on the program is Al Byrne. He's an author of a great book that you should pick up at Amazon called For Country and Cannabis. Hi, Al.
Hi, guys. Nice to be here. Yep, I wrote the book. I'm happy with the replies that I've gotten back from all kinds of people. It's there's a lot of cannabis information there, but a lot of history. I've identified in the book a lot of people that helped medical cannabis create itself, if you will, get that snowball running, both here in the United States, in Canada, and in Europe. We haven't been as successful in Asia yet, but we're working on it. But yeah, it's a good book. But listen, I'm going to go right to our guest today because time is a little short today, and we want to give our guest as much time as possible. So I get to introduce him, I guess, because I'm an author and he's an author. So that gives us some simpatico thing here. But let me introduce, please, to the audience here, Jim Gierach, who has been here before.
Welcome, Jim.
And Casper, the two L's. It's a pleasure to be with both of you. I thank you for the opportunity to be on your show. And it's often a time for hemp, and this is the time.
Well, you are an alumni of the broadcast. You've been on the program since we first started way back, I think in 2009. And so you've been a regular guest over the years, and we do enjoy all the information you bring to the table.
My hair was brown when we started.
Yes, it was. And I had hair.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
I think we all had color back then.
Yeah. So you've done a group. You got a brand new book out, don't you?
Yes, actually, this show is quite timely because the Silver Bullet Solution is my book, and the paperback edition is just being released March the 26th, 2026, and they redid the cover, and I'm really very happy with the wording they put together on the cover, where they're basically asking one failed policy, a dozen national crises. Fentanyl deaths, gang violence, mass incarceration, racial injustice, cartel power, migrant displacement, drug inundation. What if they all shared the same cause? And then it goes on and takes my thesis that the war on drugs basically makes so many of these problems worse. So I'm very happy with the way they laid out the paperback cover, and hopefully people will be reading it.
So,
so people,
you must be pretty excited. You must be pretty excited about it being moved from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3.
Well, for sure. I mean, we've had such a long wait for marijuana to be treated reasonably. Actually, if I had my druthers, it would come completely out of the schedules, but they're not letting me make the laws yet.
Yeah, well, you're not going to get a disagreement with that. We all
That's
think
right.
it should be descheduled. The one thing I will point out that by moving it to 3, if that's where it ends up, that will help U.S. veterans a lot. Because right now, if a veteran lives in a state where it is not legal or not medically available, and there's 10 of them, that veteran cannot use cannabis and be treated in our veterans health system. All the other vets in all the other states and all the territories can, but not those guys. But once it becomes 3, then it becomes a non-prohibited drug. And all those states are going to instantly make available the VA to tens of thousands, if hundreds of thousands of veterans.
Well,
so that's a good move.
I thought that too, but not in Indiana. If it goes to 3, even though federal law has changed, Indiana state law will still have it as an illegal substance, and they're going to have to either change the law in Indiana, which they're working on.
But no, because the VA is a federal organization. They don't pay attention to state laws. So it's whatever the feds do. So they go to 3 at a fed, then the VA is clean to let everybody in. You, as a vet, could go into your Indiana VA and be treated and be using cannabis. But civilian counterparts in Indiana still be illegal. It's crazy.
It is. Quite a hodgepodge of laws.
So, Jim,
the classification of cannabis has prevented research really for decades, and finally that impediment is being removed, and it's so critical because, as you see in Illinois, we have a list of conditions that are now treatable by marijuana, and it's a long list, and they keep adding things to the list. People, particularly military people that you mentioned, who are suffering from post-traumatic stress syndrome and other ailments, can be helped. And to deny those people help in these 10 states that are still dragging their feet and haven't approved medical marijuana is inexcusable.
Yeah, I agree. And, I just to your point, having a list to begin with, made up by lawyers and law enforcement, is ridiculous to begin with.
We used to have a list.
Yeah, I mean, what's this list? I mean, the way I put it, and the way the Massachusetts law is written on cannabis, very, very close to this, it says that a patient and his physician is primary care physician, shall decide to use cannabis or not based on the physician's education, experience, and how the patient feels about receiving that treatment. In other words, it's a medical decision.
The problem with medical education is that it was so verboten when many of the physicians that we are treating people nowadays, it was verboten. It was shunned upon. It was against the law, and so it wasn't really an alternative. And then research was inhibited because of the prohibition, and so the ability to learn the benefits of various cannabinoids has been frustrated. But now that impediment's being removed in so many states, that things are going to get better quickly, I hope.
Yeah, I think what's going to be removed by that is the stigma.
We still deal with it up here, and we've been legal for 7 years.
Yeah, I mean, my studies indicate that cannabis is actually the most studied plant on earth. And keep in mind, folks, that what Jim is talking about very accurately is the United States of America. That's not the world. And in the world right now, there's 30-some very, very important countries in the world that have cannabis in their pharmacopoeia and have had it there for decades or more. Again, I go back to our own Veterans Health Administration. They authorized cannabis as a medicine in July of 2010. That's pretty much 16 years ago.
I was watching television a couple of nights ago, and I happened upon they're talking about ancient civilizations and the Sumerians being the first civilization of mankind 5,000 years ago, and that society actually had 340 plants that were identified and used for medicinal purposes, one of which was cannabis, and they would record they didn't know how to write, they didn't have what we have today by way of language and communication, but they kept an inventory of the plants on clay tablets, and there are millions of these clay tablets that have survived through the ages, so that they know that use goes back to 5,000 years. And I also got a kick out of it because they were talking about they were the first ones to make beer. The Sumerians in 3000 BC.
I could hang with these guys.
They make the beer and they would boil it. And they were saying that the water, it was actually safer to drink the beer than the water, because in the process of making the beer, they would boil it and kill some of the imperfections. And then they put the beer into a container, which was used as like a community glass to drink out of. And then they would put straws in, and the people would drink the beer. So sometimes when you hear these historical facts, it makes drug policy almost amusing to see how regressed and how backwards we have gone. And another funny one was when in my reading, I found out that during the what's the name of the empire, the Ottoman Empire, they outlawed smoking tobacco, and it was a death penalty offense to be caught smoking, not weed, just smoking tobacco. And of course, tobacco is still killing people, but it's just doing it by the tobacco. We should get people to switch to cannabis.
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, I've had a lot of people tell me that they've given up the use of tobacco by using cannabis.
Yeah,
I did that.
And alcohol too. Yeah.
I quit tobacco using cannabis. Anytime I had an urge for a regular cigarette, I just twisted up a joint. And during the time that I was weaning off of cigarettes, I was really high. But
I use Jolly Ranchers, and I'd get the things by a gallon. And I would go, I don't know, I needed to have something in my mouth. And
Yeah.
I said, well, just I'll smoke tomorrow, just not
And
today.
it gives you this because you do this with your tobacco,
Yeah,
right?
it gives you
Put your
something to
candy
do
in your
instead
mouth.
of undoing the cellophane and and pounding the pack.
Yeah.
And
Well, for me, smoking a joint took care of that need to feel smoke go across my throat and into my lungs. When you get done having dinner or you get done doing a task and you want to sit down and smoke a cigarette, it's that impact of feeling the smoke enter your body. And smoking a joint every time I needed a cigarette did that for me. But like I said, it really made me high because I used to smoke about 20 cigarettes a day. So I was smoking 20 joints a day there for a while.
Hey,
yeah, one of the
Well,
ironies
what's the silver bullet, Jim? Come on,
yes,
get to the
exactly.
book. You got this book called The Silver Bullet, but you got to tell us what it is here.
Yeah.
well, the silver bullet solution is really a collection of my 37 years in drug policy. I wasn't the least bit interested in drugs, but I was a drug prosecutor and a homicide prosecutor in Chicago. And I could see, because of prohibition, that every year the problem was worse. We would have more drugs, more crime, more gangs, more violence, more guns. We were putting more and more people in prison. We had some 300,000 people locked up in America when President Nixon first became president and declared a war on drugs in 1971. And then we went to 2.3 million people behind bars.
Ooh.
The United States, the land of the free, became the prison capital of the world with the highest rate of incarceration of any country in the world. And I just don't believe that Americans are necessarily worse than Canadians or all these other people around the world.
Right.
We're equally bad, but not worse.
Is that the same? Is that level the same? Are we still the worst?
Well, we are still. I haven't actually confirmed the statistic recently, but I mean we're still well over 2 million people locked up. So I don't expect any big change. The really big change is that we're now locking people up in detention centers where we have approved like 43 billion, if I recall, to build detention camps from people who entered the United States allegedly in violation of rules, were expired visas or what have you. And so we have all these private prisons that are now in line to receive these umpteen $1 billion. That's almost similar to the amount we're spending on the war on drugs, which I think is more like 71 billion, but an incredible amount of money locking people up and on the drug war. And now we've got these detention camps.
Isn't there a financial incentive to keep our prisons full?
Well, there is.
There is.
And government is making contracts with private prisons now because they do it cheaper and they don't get monitored properly. We have horrendous living conditions in these detention camps with the immigration raids that are going on across the United States that have resulted in these demonstrations with tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people objecting to the mistreatment of people. Even people who have done something wrong are still entitled to be treated like a human being. You don't hang them because they violated some law. And yet we've got 30 to 35 nations in the world that are killing people with the death penalty for violation of drug laws.
Oh yeah. Singapore, they hung a couple people last year because of cannabis. Like, it's ridiculous.
It's insane, and it's one of the big issues at the United Nations. The Commission on Narcotic Drugs, it meets once a year in Vienna, Austria. They just finished their week-long session. It was the 69th CND session that ended this March, and one of the big things that is complained about is the want of human rights in drug policy. we want human rights, but we want drug prohibition, and the two are so often in loggerheads, where we scrap the Constitution, we scrap rules of decency and human treatment in exchange for an intolerance of substances. And yet people have been using drugs from the beginning of time and will use drugs till the end of time, which is why we need a silver bullet solution to make things better.
Now, I first found you in an organization called Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. Are you still part of that organization?
I am not actively a part. I certainly support the work that Law Enforcement Against Prohibition has done. As a member of the board of directors and as a speaker of that organization, I drafted the first comprehensive proposed amendment of UN drug treaties. And we have had success in getting 3 drug czars of Ecuador, the Czech Republic, and India, whose drug czars have recommended or endorsed the book because it talks sense. It doesn't matter what continent you're on. Right now, we have a world war on drugs. It has been going on for 69 years, since 1961. My arithmetic is right, maybe it's, but 1961 was the beginning of the United Nations treaty.
Single
that
convention.
says the only legitimate use of drugs is for medical or scientific purpose. And as we all know, people use substances just to relax. They come home at the end of a day's work, or there's been tension, or they need to perk up their awareness, or fighter pilots for the United States during previous wars would give amphetamines to the pilots to keep them awake to fly sortie after sortie in Vietnam. So I mean, the dichotomy between common sense and the rules concerning drugs conflict with each other, causing so much harm to so many people in so many different ways. People overdosing.
It does, but then we've also got the situation of fentanyl. I mean, fentanyl is a horrific drug that's becoming across our border illegally. That's actually been killing people in our country.
I haven't had fentanyl since they operated on my knees 2 years ago. Fentanyl is actually a legal synthetic opioid, which is used regularly during operations. There's nothing wrong with fentanyl. The problem is that fentanyl is oftentimes 100 times more powerful than simple heroin. And because we prohibit drugs, there's no ability to read a label to know whether you're consuming fentanyl or not. So we have people overdosing on synthetic drugs because they have no way to find out what they're consuming. And it's killing them. 80,000 people died last year of drug overdoses because they don't know what's in it. That's absurd. That's caveman drug policy.
You know, it's interesting too. You used somebody goes to work, they come home, they want to relax, they want to use cannabis to relax, and that's bad. However, if you do the same thing and you take a bottle of some prescription drug relaxing pharmaceutical, that's fine. It is sort of, think about what you're doing here. Which one is going to help you the most, and which one's going to do the least harm?
You know,
we don't have a solution though, do we, Jim? I mean,
the answer is that we have to be more tolerant. Intolerance is the heart of wars. It's whether it's a drug war or invading another country or trying to take the other guy's property. It's intolerance. It's hate. It's fear that comes, fear of a substance, fear of the neighbor, fear of Islam, sexual differences. People need tolerance for the idiosyncrasies, the failings, and the differences between one another. And that's what's so often lacking. Because the guy likes beer, and the other guy likes scotch, and the other guy likes cannabis, and the other guy likes LSD. I mean, we don't have to recommend that somebody use this substance or that substance, but we should afford everybody with the opportunity to learn about the substances they're consuming so that they make an educated choice about how they want to live and what's okay and what's not.
Yeah, well, at least the recent changes or the recommendations, for instance, nutrition now being taught in at least 50 medical schools. I mean, that's a nice start. But when you to refer to what you're thinking about, well, wait a minute. Why is it just now in 2026 we're teaching doctors about nutrition? There's been a real shortfall in medical and nursing education over the years, and I'm hoping we catch up to it. Although it's been slow. It's been real.
Sure. Autism is one of the ailments that can benefit from the use of cannabis, and yet many people who are in charge of treating those patients were taught that cannabis is not a medicine. And the irony is, I've even got one instance in my family where there's a physician. He was taught that it was bad, and yet he has now a grandchild who's got autism. And it has to change. People have to try to dispel the beliefs that make no sense, and look to the benefits and the help that come to people using substances. People who've had seizures they can't stop the seizures, and they give them marijuana, and the tremors and the seizures stop. How can we say no to that medicine?
Yeah, especially what we do. Every week we interview somebody like you that's actually using the medicine, using it on children, using it on animals, using it just to promote their own well-being and their health. We hear it all the time. And I look out at, say, the nightly news, and they don't have a clue about all this wonderful stuff's happening. And what's worse, they don't seem to care. So I'm really hopeful your book will break through some of that bubble that's around these folks.
Well, I certainly hope so, because there are just so many crises. In the United States right now, we have this problem of immigrants coming to the United States. And it isn't that the United States just insists on drug prohibition for America, but we insist on it for the world. So the gangs in South and Central America are making huge amounts of money in the prohibition drug business, but is creating so much violence. Drug warfare between gangs in South and Central American countries. So they're flooding the United States southern border. And when they get here, we say, well, we don't want you. Well, yet we're the ones that made the rule, that made the conditions in those countries unlivable. And they're trying to escape the violence and the corruption that comes inevitably with prohibition. And that has to change. That has to change. And the only way to do it is systemically, globally, with a change of United Nations drug prohibition treaties to make them treaties of tolerance, of understanding, of recognition of medicine, of recognition of the fact that for 5,000 years, mankind has used substances not only for medicinal and scientific purpose, but also for recreational purpose. And that's the kind of understanding I hope that my book, The Silver Bullet Solution, will bring to mankind.
Thank you so much for your time. We also are rooting for your book, and maybe when you got a little more time, we can have you back for another half hour or something sometime.
Well, that would be great. I appreciate being with all three of you. I wish you all good weather. The spring is coming.
All right, man. Well, you take care. Thank you again.
Byrne, you want to let people know how to get a hold of a copy of your book?
Well, yeah, you can get a copy of my book just like you get a copy of Jim's book. You go online, you go to Amazon, you go to Apple Books, wherever. All of these guys will have our books, and I think you ought to buy them both.
And Al Graham got dropped. His Wi-Fi is not working at the moment, but do make it a point to check out Pace Radio Network and learn about the things that he's doing up there. And I want to let everybody know how important it is to share the word about cannabis hemp. That's the only way we're going to get the information out and let the whole world know just how important it is to take time for hemp.
Look at all that money, yeah, the money that they've spent. Take another look and take some time for hemp. Don't cut trees for paper, 'cause it hurts the environment. Stop deforestation, yeah, it's time for hemp. Well, an acre of hemp makes 20 barrels of oil. No need for pesticides to poison all our soil. People got no food, they got no clothes, they got no rent. Well, it's time for hemp. Throughout Earth's history, hemp has been used, no mystery. Hemp was legal to pay your taxes for more than a century. Check your faxes, founding fathers make sense to me. It's time to grow hemp legally. Think of all its uses, it's money that's well spent. Right now, no excuses, it's time for hemp. Sustainable green industry, that's our intent. A better place this world will be. It's time for hemp. Fuel and food and clothes and soap, housing, cars. Yeah, cars, no joke. Henry Ford built a car of hemp. It's time for us to do it again. People be employed with balanced farming as it's meant. Right now it's time for hemp. Hemp is a true necessity for the wealth and protection of this country. Thomas Jefferson spoke those words. He knew the value of these herds. It's time to lift the hemp ban. It's time to make a strong stand. Yes, we can, I know we can. I know we can. We can make a difference, yes we can. Just like birds of a feather, we can work together and lift the hemp ban. Look at all that money, yeah, the money that they've spent. Take another look and take some time for hemp. Don't cut trees for paper, 'cause it hurts the environment. Stop deforestation, yeah, it's time